Good morning. I hope all of you have gotten some food and coffee or juice or refreshments of some sort and are ready to rock and roll with these lovely speakers today. And I hope you're getting to know one another. It's very important that you talk to your neighbor and find out what's going on with them. And sometimes these places are, when we host these events, we want a very safe place for patients and caregivers to talk to each other and say whatever you need to say, talk about whatever you need to talk about. My name is Brazeau. I've been in the space now almost 22 years in the MPN world. There are some people in this room that traveled from Florida and from North Carolina, and a couple of our speakers came from the Carolinas. Stephanie, would you mind standing for a second? Stephanie Cedric came from Florida, and she got out early. So Stephanie, if you don't mind my saying, I've known Stephanie since she was a teenager, and she's now 44 years old. I know you're happy about that. But I say that stuff because I want people in this room that have just recently been diagnosed or have a family member who is young, who was diagnosed, to understand that even though, and I might have Stephanie, I might have you share a few things about your story. Her mother started Friends of ET, and which has been around ever since I've been in this space. And her mom used to host fundraisers to fund research in MPNs, especially in ET. She actually raised $1 million or more for the MPN Research Foundation. So, yeah. Stephanie's story is quite interesting and compelling, and her journey has been long and sometimes wonderful and sometimes pretty difficult. But anyway, we have a great lineup of speakers today. The individuals that come to these programs do not get paid, just to let you know. Their travel is paid for and their food, and that's it. And so I would like to, right now, applaud the speakers for today. Seriously. I've known many of these doctors for a long time, and some are new to our organization. But you'll hear from Dr. Laura Michaels, who I knew many years ago in Chicago, and Ellen Ritchie, who I've known forever. And then we have some new doctors. Dr. Pettit is in Michigan, not far from us. But you will hear from some other physicians today that have some great information. I mean, it will just blow you away. So you'll also hear from the one gentleman in the room, or in the lineup. There are other gentlemen here, but Justin Grinnell, who some of you have met before in the past. Justin is a certified trainer, but he has done extensive work in MPNs, learning about MPN patients. He has a few MPN patients now that he works with. And we'll do some breaks for us today to just do some stretching and breathing and give you some information about what you can do to help blood flow. So I also want to thank our sponsors and our industry partners. You can see their slide here. And Dr. Ruben Mesa has been my scientific advisor for 1,000,000 years, and he's a frequent speaker at our events. But we just did an event in Asheville, North Carolina, and before his CME credit program. And let's see. So we provide information about scientific and clinical trial updates. We have MPN focus groups, so very often there will be a question that comes to us about a certain situation with MPN patients. It might be ET, PV, or MF. We will pull together a cohort of patients and have discussions about what's happening. We usually bring a physician with us. We do conversations with MPN specialists. We do 12 to 15 webinars per year. And some of you have mentioned that you have watched those. We usually get 250 to 300 patients at those webinars. And we used to do 7 or 8 in-person events, but we now do 3. And this women's event, this is our 10th annual women's event. We're really happy about that. Years ago, I partnered with Dr. Laura Michaels, who you'll hear from next, and we had talked about gender differences and MPNs, and you'll hear from another physician here about gender differences. There are some, obviously, and women bear children, we have menses, we have perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. I mean, we've gotten it all. Aren't we lucky? And so, there are specific issues if you have an MPN that you should know. And you're going to hear from some incredible people today that will talk to you about all of that. Dr. Jennifer Ashton from ABC, she was the medical advisor for ABC. She'll be our special guest right after lunch. She's a gynecologist, and she's also a board-certified nutritionist. She knows a lot about MPNs, and she'll share some information with you to help you understand, things that you can do to feel better. We have lots of MPN resources. If you call our organization and say, what about this? If I can't do it or we can't provide it, we will direct you to the appropriate place. Especially if you are on a drug that you can't afford, let us know, and we will direct you to that company department that can help you get drug, because the last thing we want is someone that's doing well on a medication and they can't get it or they can't afford it. We have a lot of MPN initiatives. I spend some time on the Hill in Washington, D.C. It's a real treat with all the different things that are happening in politics, but I will tell you that there are people there that truly care about the cost of drugs, about what's happening with Medicare, about what's happening just in the medical world and healthcare world and healthcare policies. But we try to be influential where we can be, and we will be going to meet one more time, I hope, excuse me, with the Veterans Administration. We partnered with Georgetown University researchers and finally have found a link between Agent Orange and MPNs. So we are very hopeful that this year we'll be able, or next year probably, get MPNs on the VA's presumptive list, so those Vietnam vets will be able to get the benefits they deserve. And our educational programs, you're going to hear so many things, and it might seem overwhelming to some of the new patients in this room, and even to the old ones, or the former ones, the ones that have been around for a while. I learn something every single time we do this, and we all look at each other, staff and other people I've known for years, and say, oh my God, I did not know that. You're going to hear about kidney issues, I believe, right? And yeah, a little bit, but who thought about kidney issues with MPNs? Ellen Ritchie does a beautiful job about cardiac health. We know that women in this country die from cardiac issues and health issues more than anything else. And so listen to her presentation and heed her recommendations. We have MPN patient support groups. We host the one in Michigan, and they are all over the country and international. There are international groups as well. Since the pandemic, most people are meeting online, but they do exist, and just let us know if you need help finding one. Our goals and commitments are to assist, direct, and inform all of you as much as we can, and to deal with the issues that impact the MPN community always. Quality care, treatment access, current research and clinical trials, and our advocacy efforts, and of course, provide the resources, which I just said. That's it. That's all I have to say. We do 12 to 15 webinars. We do 3 in-person events. We have a patient advisory council. A couple of you in the room are on that council, and we meet with them periodically to hear what they have to say about some of the issues they're facing. One we talked about last night at dinner, but also came up this morning from a patient, and that is the disparity in treatment. One physician might say, do this, and the other physician says, no, you don't have to do that. Let's do this, or do nothing. And so there are it's a very heterogeneous disease group, and each patient has to be dealt with differently, and you will hear from some of the doctors. The other thing I want to really stress is you have every opportunity to ask any question you'd like. So if you have a question for these physicians, ask it. When they're done, you'll be able to ask any questions. Sorry. Um, and if you don't feel comfortable asking in this group, give your question to me and I'm happy to ask it. See if I'm missing it. Oh, we also have patient roundtables and physician roundtables. So we will do this periodically. If there are issues that come to our attention that we need to bring patients together or physicians together, we do that and try to get to the root of what we need to do subsequently. I mentioned focus groups. I talked about we also deal with pediatric and young adult issues. We partnered with Nicole Cousine, who is not here today, but there is a ever-growing group of young patients that are teenagers on up to age 30. And then, of course, we actually sent out a survey. We do a lot of surveys. We sent a survey out to people that are still in the workplace between the ages of 25 and I think 55. And that survey really enlightened us because what we heard from the patient was they were afraid to tell their bosses or their coworkers that they had a blood cancer. They feared they would not get promotions. They feared they might get fired. And so, these are issues that come up in any chronic disease, I believe, but in this one particularly, there's a lot of silence, and I'm not a silent person. And so if you have an issue, let us take it up if you need us. There's a group growing across the country. They're called PDABs. They're Prescription Drug Advisory Boards. And they are all across the country, or beginning to grow across the country. I believe the governors are most involved in this in each state. But it's a board that anybody can attend these meetings, by the way. We've attended a couple online with the Colorado group. A lot of it is boring and you just sit and listen, but their goal is to make sure that drugs that you need are accessible. And so we're kind of paying close attention to that group. And then Go with the Flow was something I started a long time ago. I've only done 3 recipes, but my goal was to have recipes that promoted heart health and blood flow. There it is. And that's it. And this was, I attended a class, and the professor was actually, I mentioned this in Asheville, but the professor was actually a pastor also. He was a scientist and spent a lot of time in his lab. And one of the things, the word that comes up with some of the physicians I know is humility. And Dr. Craig Kessler from Georgetown just spoke at one of our events. And before he came online, he said, if a physician doesn't have some humility, then it's kind of difficult to work with them at times. And I think we all should have humility about whatever it is that we do. Science is not perfect, but it is something that these people that you'll hear from today spend much of their time doing to save your lives and to make things better in your lives. And I can tell you that the people in this room that I've met are magnificent. And I have never met so many physicians in a disease group. I was in breast cancer and prostate cancer before this. And there's nothing like these people. It's really fantastic.